Okay, I'm going to do a couple of textures that are very fast and fun and straight. I want to show you the beginning. The two textures I'm working with to start with are exact opposite circles. Circle within a circle, black, white, and this is white, black, black. The key to this texture is to go ahead and cut each of these sections into small, quarter or $half or full dollar size pieces. And then what I'm going to do is flip-flop these textures on each other. So it'll be a off and on alternating staccato pattern, but the pattern will line up. So these two pieces, you'd try to line them up kind of as closely as you could, and then you would flip or alternate every other one to create it's going to create a really beautiful texture when you actually slice it up at an angle. You're going to eventually slice it up at this kind of an angle or some kind of dynamic approach angle. I'm going to go ahead and finish up some more of these cuts. This is actually a piece of clay that's been around for this. This is a texture I made, geez, it was 20 years ago, and it was sitting around in the box, and I thought I would bring it out, finish it off, so you could see, you can use this principle on any kind of, pattern. If you repeat the white and black, white, black of a repeated pattern that's identical, it could be boxes or stars or any letters, numbers. Any of those shapes, same principle will apply. You try to get it to be pretty much identical in size or scale. So the pattern is, as much as you can, identically repeating, in a sense, the flip-flop or the opposite. One is the opposite of the other. So I'll go ahead and, these aren't super accurate, but they'll get the point across once they're cut up. Flip, flop, flip. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. They're going a little sideways, but that won't matter as long as you cut it again at a dynamic angle and not at some kind of, or I'll smash it down, sort of even it up at any kind of, the one thing you don't want to cut is at this angle. That's what I'm trying to say, or this angle. Those two are not the most interesting, but any kind of dynamic angle, which is at a kind of a 45 or a 30 or a 15 degree angle, will give a desired, cool, interesting result. Alright, let me get one more off this. Give me a couple more off this. Oops, wrong side of the knife. I almost cut myself coming down the wrong direction. This knife is just sharp enough but really dull generally, so I can be pretty whimsical with it and not worry too much about it cutting me back. Okay, this is a good amount of material, and I'm going to go ahead and split it maybe in two, maybe here. I'll take one more slice, and then I'm going to put these at two very different dynamic angles. I'm going to use some junk clay, filler clay, leftover clay, stuff that's just lying around, and randomly find ways to create a 45 and a 45. I think that's always most interesting. Or 15 or 30 on a 30, or whichever way you want to do it. So, for example, if I set them in this way, and my my cutting direction will be like so. Bam, 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 bam. I'm going to get a reasonably, I'll do it like that, make it a little more, I'll get a reasonably dynamic show out of it. It won't be too, hey, look at that, one more, what the hell. This is going to be, again, a fast and dirty, just to give you an example of how textures work. All right. It's going to require a little more packing. But again, just to reiterate, the angle of approach on something like this would be approximately, let's go like that. So as we're cutting through, let's go like this. Bam, 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 bam. You can see it's on a double dynamic angle. This one is more on a straight dynamic angle. It's got a little bit of twist in it. Perhaps I'll go like that, and that way that both of them will show you kind of the dynamics of putting textures on an angle. And this is always just really a simple and fast way you can use, again, stars or any pattern, squares, faces, little skulls, whatever you want, and it'll be this really beautiful rhythmic rippling that re-emphasizes that pattern as it goes through the cutting cycle. One other really cool and fast texture I wanted to show was what I call twisted crabs. Twisted crabs are super simple and beautiful, actually, I think. Let me take this. This is a a sheet of texture, some sandwiches, 3 colors patterned up. You can use a little less than this. I mean, you don't have to have 3, but you could have, I mean, this is 3 times 3. You could have 2 times 3. So twisted crabs are really super simple. They'll go at the same kind of dynamic angle as these other, the last texture. Most textures work better when they're thrown on a dynamic. You twist these up. This clay is a little tough, so it's going to take it's not really warmed up. It's going to take a little bit of time. And when these are cut at a dynamic angle, they become, it's funny how the stripes sort of come from behind and from the other side and they merge. It's very visually, it makes sense visually when you see it. It kind of like creates a part of your eye that recognizes what's going on, but I wouldn't even know how to describe the result beforehand. I wouldn't know quite why it works the way it does, because you're kind of keeping the middle, but you're missing both sides of the edges. The middle sort of makes sense. It always stays, but you'll see that the edges sort of disappear and reappear on either side, but it's still, your eye kind of catches it, and I find it really, when I first saw it cut open, I was really excited because it didn't take much to do and felt like a really coherent, beautiful use of a simple pattern. Draws your eye along and makes quite, to me, an impression you really couldn't get with any other medium. It just wouldn't happen. This is really eye candy because it's ribbons of color put into motions that you would otherwise never see or use or do on any kind of cell or CG or any other medium to create this time-based sculpted art would not yield this kind of pattern or this kind of pattern. There's also the sort of handmade mud, neon mud aspect of it that also makes patterns just really fun to watch, I think, when I see the results. Alright, very quick and dirty. I'm probably going to want to put them all at this kind of a 45, just like that last one. So I'm not going to want to keep them straight in the ground. Give it a trying to create a negative base. Again, I'm reusing some old material, which is quite beautiful in and of itself. I love those colors. And I might want to throw some of this. I don't know if I want a pattern in between. I don't think I will. I think I'll just throw them up on this color at this double 45. So as I cut it this direction, the crabs will be twisting up and out. I can talk all I want. It's hard to. It's easier to see and understand than it is to describe it and imagine it. So definitely something worth watching as a clip to understand why this kind of approach really is effective. Now, all the animation is pushing this direction, so the last part is to imagine, as I cut these slices, will any part fall off? Is any part not supported by something beneath it? Most of that is true on the back side, meaning if I start cutting this way, some of these things are hanging out in midair with no way to find their way down. So this last little bit of material is to make sure that there's an exit for each one of these flying pieces as I cut this direction. So I'm working from behind the block now, just to ensure that there's a sort of physical drop point that makes sure that these pieces don't just sort of hang there in midair and disappear. That's what this is all about. This isn't a particularly well done version of it. I'm doing it fast and dirty again for example's sake. I'd probably spend about 3 or 4 more times the amount of time on this if I were truly trying to get a more organized, coherent pattern, but I think it really will be sufficient once you see it cut up to understand it. And I will post perhaps some clips from previous textures that I've done that are very similar in a result. That's it. You have to imagine again that the direction of time is going this way, and maybe this way, and I'll be chopping it up like that. Here, I'll give you a preview. It makes these shapes will ripple through really well. Actually, the heart of it would be a better thing to see. Give you a preview of this right here. Okay. That's also kind of rough, but these will be appearing and disappearing as they rope themselves up. The center will sort of hold, but these outer parts will sort of dance in and out, sucking down and sucking in to the shape, and your eye will catch it as it all goes along and sort of put it all together in motion. It'll be kind of, as they say in German, the Gestalt, when a series of otherwise somewhat difficult to understand single frames come together and the abstractions kind of glue together when you actually see them in motion. Your eye kind of puts it all together. One other idea I wanted to bring up in Stratacut was to think of motion in your own mind. Whoa. In your own mind, when you are trying to extrude, this is not a texture idea, but when you're trying to extrude time, you want to, I often think of it as a series of shapes. If I were walking, I would actually kind of imagine the flow of my arms through space, or the flow of my legs, as I try to create the ropes in my head. So often I can just work from still frames and not actually animation, or just do it out of my head as I try to think of the flow, perhaps, of bringing my arm to my head, the kind of the extrusion of time. You just start to begin to think that way, and the way a piece of motion should be sculpted as a result of that kind of thinking is, I think, a key learning experience that it's good to start to train your mind to do if you're serious about trying to come up with new and interesting physical shapes. Again, some photo reference and analysis. There's nothing that makes you can't do without it. Just like a figurative drawing, you kind of need to look at shapes and think about them, study them. So photos and reference are good, but in your mind, you need to begin to think, even on twisting, what that does to. It's a flow of, like, the nose moving through, or the way the body gets thinner and bigger. I know I'm not explaining myself very well, but just trying to say it's another idea to show you how I've tried to learn the art, is to think of that as an extruded flow line in your mind as much as you can, and then try to work from that. Good night.